So over the past few years, I've been seeing the automotive repair field go in the wrong direction, in a bad direction. This is just one of those contributing factors. There's actually many, but we're just going to talk about one today, in particular just because an example of it came straight to me this week, and it's just one of those things that continues to bug me and get under my skin. So we're going to talk about it today. So earlier this week, I had to go meet with my insurance agent, had some business to take care of, and it had been a while since I'd seen him. We were talking, getting caught up, and in that, he mentioned that his son was having issues with his truck, a 2015 Chevy Colorado V6 automatic two-wheel drive that they had had since brand new. One owner, they had it his entire life, so knows all the service history on it, 98,500-ish miles on it. He mentioned that his son was having an issue with it, and he'd taken it to several different shops to get an opinion, get a diagnosis on it. At least 4, possibly 5. And every single shop told him something completely different than the other was the issue he was having with his truck and what was going to fix it, with pretty steep repair estimates for each one of them. Now, this isn't uncommon for him to bounce stuff off automotive related to me. He knows who I am. He knows what I do. I work on his truck. I worked on his daughter's Jeep, and I worked on his son-in-law's Jeep in the past. So ask me questions about his son's truck. You know, I'm here to help. So he said he had one main concern with the truck, and that was about 35 mile an hour. It felt sluggish. It felt like there was an issue, it was bogging down, but anywhere else driving, it was fine. Just right around 35 mile an hour, he felt something a little odd that didn't feel normal. So the last place he'd taken it to said that he had an issue with his oxygen sensors. So I said, all right, well, what code did they pull that was oxygen sensor related for them to say that? Well, he said, well, I think he said something about oxygen sensor bank 1 and 2 low voltage. And I said, okay. So he's got some kind of lean issue, or he's got an issue with the oxygen sensor, or, you know, there's several different things that could be the cause of a code that is oxygen sensor related. When anytime I see someone say, oh, well, you've got an oxygen sensor code, you need an oxygen sensor, that is an immediate red flag. Rarely does a code directly correlate to a part that needs to be replaced in the diagnostic procedure. Codes are just hints. They're stepping stones that get you to the root cause of an issue. So there's many different oxygen sensor codes, many different causes for these codes. There are codes related to the actual voltage of the oxygen sensor. There are codes related to the heater circuit of the oxygen sensor. There are codes related to the correlation between the upstream and downstream oxygen sensor. Many, many codes with many root causes. No two vehicles can be diagnosed exactly the same way, because you could have a chafed wire on one, you could have a bad sensor on one, you could have a burnout heater in one, you could have a bad catalytic converter. You can't just one size fits all diagnosing from code alone. So I asked him, I said, you know, text your son, call your son, tell him to figure out what the code was exactly. Get into contact with the guy that scanned it last, let me know. Okay. So he got his son on the phone and we were talking about it, and turns out there was actually no code. There was no code at all, no check engine light, no real issue. Apparently someone had looked at live data and told him that his oxygen sensor voltage was too low. Well, low oxygen sensor voltage would indicate a lean condition, but if it was low enough to be erratic, the PCM would have flagged it and thrown a check engine light for it. So that seemed a little off, a little odd to me. They said, oh, your oxygen sensor voltage is low, you need new oxygen sensors. They're about $300, which is wildly outrageous for an oxygen sensor for a Colorado, because if I recall correctly, they're under $100 a piece, GM genuine AC Delco sensors. Might be less than that. I kind of just did a quick Google search. But anyway, this guy was about to charge him to replace 2 oxygen sensors based off of 5 seconds of looking at live data from the oxygen sensors. No check engine light, no other issues, based on the complaint of the vehicle feels a little sluggish around 35 mile an hour and then is perfectly fine running. He had a few other concerns. One was about the engine air filter, because they didn't recollect it ever being replaced, which is kind of scary that a 2015 was running around on a factory air filter with almost 100,000 miles on it. They did note that the spark plugs had not been replaced yet, and they should be replaced in 100,000 miles. So I said, first thing we should probably do, since there's no codes and no other issues, and all these other guys have told you all this wild stuff, let me take the truck, let me go and check it out, let me see if I can find anything. If I can't find anything, what we should do, bare minimum, is go ahead and change that air filter and change your spark plugs, get all your general maintenance items, your scheduled maintenance stuff called up, and then, assess from there. I asked him, has your throttle body been cleaned? It's a drive-by-wire. There could be an issue there. What other preventative maintenance has been done? Regular scheduled maintenance. What have you done? What have you not done now that you're nearing 100,000 miles? And they really couldn't tell me much other than the air filter and the spark plug. So I said, all right, well, get the truck to me, I'll check it out, and we'll see what we can find. So I get the truck on Thursday, and I drive it. I feel no real issue. The only thing I found was there was a slight pull to the right, so likely a front end alignment, and there was a little bit of tire noise, but the tires were, a little warm. They weren't brand new tires. Also, it's a pickup truck. It's going to have a little bit of road noise. They're not going to be quite like a Mercedes. So first thing I do is hook up my scan tool, hook up my Snap-on Zeus, and do a full code scan. Not one single code in any of the modules. Nothing. Of course, no check engine light, and as he said, there never had been a check engine light to pop up. So based on that, I don't know if the previous guy had cleared codes and they just didn't reappear, or if, there just wasn't any issue. I checked the readiness monitors and they were all set, so it had at least completed the drive cycle since it was cleared, if it had been cleared. But yeah, there were no codes whatsoever in it. And again, I didn't feel any drivability concerns. His father actually drove the truck that morning to me, and he said he didn't feel what he was talking about at 35, and really neither did I. I did happen to drive it quite a bit just to see around 35 mile an hour if I could figure anything out. And the only thing I sensed was that the TCM was upshifting the transmission to a much higher gear at lower speed, which most modern vehicles try to get the transmission shifted to highest gear it can for low speed for fuel economy savings. So I kind of just attribute it to that it's a learned thing from your driving habits that the TCM has, upshifted quickly around that speed. Maybe you do a lot of driving around 35 mile an hour and 35 mile an hour zone, so it goes ahead and quick shifts into the highest gear it can. So I said, well, okay, well, that's not something that, would cause a real big concern, because it's probably been upshifting to the highest gear around 35 for a while. So the fact that it's bogging down is a little bit odd. But I said, well, if they haven't been cleaning the throttle body, there could be a lot of buildup on the throttle body, and it could be enough to restrict airflow that it's maybe bogging it down at that high of a gear, at that speed with light throttle. So now again, I could not reproduce the concern from the customer, but when I got it to the house, I checked the spark plugs, made sure that they were original and hadn't been replaced. I checked the air filter, did a couple of things. But I did go ahead and look at the throttle body, as I had to take off the engine cover, and the intake tube is made in the engine cover on this truck. And I did find lots of buildup, lots of carbon buildup around the butterfly valve and the throttle body. So I said, all right, well, I got it here. I'm going to go ahead and do a throttle body cleaning, get all this gunk off of here, and do an idle relearn. So we did that, and it seemed to be more responsive to me. I'm going to let them drive it to see, if it fixed this concern at 35, and I went ahead and ordered his spark plugs and air filter and the upper plenum gasket, because on this particular V6 you've got to remove the upper plenum on the intake manifold for one of the 6 spark plugs. Good job, GM, you couldn't move that evap solenoid over just a hair to clear that last coil. You turn a 30-minute job into a 3.2 hour on the book labor for replacing those spark plugs. So here's the point of the whole video. This guy had a minimal concern with his drivability. And instead of these other 4 or 5 shops actually seeking out the root cause of it, which I'm pretty sure was that dirty throttle plate, they wanted to give him estimates, wild guesses, based on nothing, honestly, to give him a big repair bill, a big estimate. And that is the problem. One of the biggest problems we have right now in this trade. Guys like that who aren't honest really give everyone a bad name. There was no indication from anything I saw to say that this truck needed oxygen sensors. There was no codes correlated with it. There was no issues in the live data I saw for it. No reason to charge this guy that kind of money for oxygen sensors. We've talked about this in the past on other videos, like the video here about the Subaru dealership charging a customer $300 for a parasitic draw, replacing tail lights, and the root cause, diagnosed by me, was a bad CD player. So it happens at the dealership level. It happens at independent shops. This guy I know for a fact went to an NTB. One of those quotes was from NTB. I don't know if NTB was the one that told him about the oxygen sensors or if it was some other thing. I didn't get into the entire history of what had been told to him was the root cause. The last diagnosis he had, was the oxygen sensor issue. So yeah, it's just frustrating. It's just something I wanted to get out there, talk about, open up some conversation in the comments below. Viewers, how many of you had bad experiences with a bad diagnosis, a big repair bill from a dealership, an independent repair shop, or one of those quick lube tune-up places, and paid it, and then it didn't fix your issue, or your issue came right back because they didn't properly diagnose it? They just wrote a big ticket, saw dollar signs when they saw you, and saw a sucker. Now, I know not always is it the case that they're trying to pull one over on you. Some guys just don't have the education, ability, or the training to properly diagnose, and they're doing the best they can. That is a little more forgivable than the guy that just throws a dart at the wall or rolls a die and says, well, this is what's wrong with your vehicle. I see it all the time. When I was a Snap-on dealer, I went into lots of shops. I had hundreds of customers on several different franchise routes. I knew pretty quickly who knew what they were talking about and who didn't, just from walking in and talking to these guys on what they were working on, what they were seeing, and what they thought the issue was. So I know there's a lot of different shops in a lot of different regions, and it's different where you're at. But based on the demographic that I have to pull from, it was a very small percentage of guys that actually knew what they were doing diagnosing vehicles. So many, the majority of what I saw was guys that either were halfway there or just not there at all. They were there to get a paycheck and turn nuts and bolts. That was it. So guys, I think I might make a series out of this video talking about issues I see with the auto repair field, the bad direction it's going in. What do you guys think? Again, have you had experiences with poor diagnosis? Have you spent a bunch of money to fix a problem that didn't get fixed? Leave it in the comments below. Let me know your experiences. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. I will see you in the next one.